How do they know that they should love Allah this much? It's fascinating that every mother, regardless of what the circumstances of that family were, they said to the child, that mother said to the child, Allah. And they taught them this. And just like your mother raised you, their mothers in the corners of this world, billions. How many did I say? Not millions, but billions of them. Billion mothers raised their children saying, Beta at salat, in their own language. This thing, my child, it's prayer. They didn't say it one day. Billions of these mothers said it every day. For 20, 30, 40 years, child's life, they kept saying, Beta at salat. Come on, we have to go for salah. They taught their children how to read the Quran. They made that sacrifice. When I was young, I had a chance to read this book that was written by, actually, I don't remember the author's name. It was written by a survivor from the onslaught of the Balkans. See, obviously, who lived in the 80s and 90s are familiar with the unfortunate situations that happened in Bosnia and the way the Muslims were killed there. And even before that, the situation in Russia and the oppression that Muslims face of their atheistic worldview, communism. So this person wrote this book, and I remember reading it as a child, and it was about the sacrifices they had to go through to remain. So the lady writes that Islam was banned as a faith. People could practice it. Muslims weren't willing their faith. So publicly they would say they had no faith. But at home, inside their homes, they would dig out these basements that were not a part of any blueprint, that were not documented on any city plan. They would wake their kids up at 2 a.m. It was common for the Muslims to wake their kids up at 2 a.m. And they would take them under the house with candles and teach them how to read alif, ba, ta, tha, ja, jim, ha, ha, ha. The mothers and fathers would sit there and teach them, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Qul huwallahu ahad. So now you're walking around the Kaaba and you see in all corners, one is there that if you pay attention to those faces, there are tears running down their eyes and they're just whispering their du'as to Allah in their own languages. Ya Allah, marriage this, Ya Allah, wealth that, Ya Allah, health this, Ya Allah, debt that. And they're just going through what it is. They're whispers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Arafat is again that same place where the lover reaches and meets their beloved. Paradigm, this framework that Shaykh al-Hadith rahimahullah gives is powerful because it's how to think we show up to our ibadah. If you don't think right, if your niyyah is correct, if your mind is not in the, you can have the most virtuous of moments and miss out on it. And I say this with such a heavy heart, not so much for you guys, but more directed at myself. And if it applies to someone else, then we make tawbah to Allah together of how much we have neglected the favors of Allah. How many opportunities Allah has given us, and we've just wasted those moments watching TV, scrolling through our phones and going through reels, just wasting time. And somehow Shaitan has justified all of this in our mind. We feel that we're doing it right. We feel that we are the right people. Like no one can ever blame me for the wrong that I've done. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, and may He never expose us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never expose us and disgrace us in this dunya and in the next. May He always cover for us and continue to give us beautiful opportunities so we can, in our broken manner, draw closer to Allah. The reality is that when I sit in these gatherings with a group of Muslims in the masjid, I wonder to myself, as I look at the faces around me, that I don't know which deed of yours was such that Allah Ta'ala gathered you together to be in these majalis on such blessed days. There must have been something. There must have been some. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invited you. The masjid has so much space. These could be other human beings, but they're not here. It's a matter of tawfiq. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of us are able to make it with our family members. Our own family members didn't receive the tawfiq you have right now. Our relatives didn't receive the same tawfiq that you have right now. And this is just, situations that the more you think about reality hits you, that it's not even your own doing, it's just a continuous favor and bounty of Allah subhanahu. I had the opportunity of performing Hajj with my teachers many times. And one of my teachers, Sheikh Bilal, he would always say something when we arrive in Arafah. He would say one statement every time when we would arrive in Arafah, because what would happen is, back in those days, you didn't have groups. You had groups, but it wasn't like today. Today, anyone would come 3-4 people together that have their group, and 10 guys their group. So and then they would have everyone in these massive tents. So all the groups were in one tent. It didn't matter which Dara, this Dara, it didn't matter. You were going to get big tent. Everyone had to be together. So when we would arrive in Arafat, all the groups were lectures going on. One sheikh is giving a lecture there. One sheikh is giving a lecture there. Our group consisted of only students of knowledge and teachers. No people outside of the madrasa allowed in our group. It was a group from the madrasa. The senior sheikh in the whole group was Bilal. So sometimes the students, we'd go to him and we'd say, look, they're giving lecture over there, they're giving bayan over there, they're giving bayan over there. Say a few words right now, it'll be beneficial to the small group that is here right now. And at that point, the same statement every time. He would say, Arafat is not a place or time for lectures. What would he say? Arafat is place or time for lectures. This is the time for dua. This is the time about building your akhir. This is about shooting reels, not Instagram reels, but your highlight reels of the hereafter that will be to you when you stand in front of your Allah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remind you, oh, it was 100 degrees outside, and everyone else was doing this, that, and the other, and preparing Eid, and there you were with your hands raised, crying and making dua to me, hoping if I heard you or not. By the one who I heard, and I'm here to reward you today. So that's what he would say to us all the time. That Arafah is not a day for lectures, it is a day for action. But when he did speak, he didn't talk about the history of Arafat right now. We're not going to. He didn't talk about the fiqh of it. Even though we were there in Arafat, because everyone was students, they had most studied, if not all of them at quite advanced level. His focus was on tawbah and istighfar. That's what I wanted to spend some moments today sharing with you all as a reflection. Just reflecting on tawbah and istighfar. When a person turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they should learn to cry in front of Allah with their hands raised, and Allah for forgiveness. We don't consider our doings as significant because we have somehow internally normalized our negligence and sin. We have accepted this to be the new standard. That the way I live life is the way, and this is the standard. That's not true. Look to the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Arafat, he performed his wuquf. His time in Arafat was spent mostly on anyone know which animal was on? On a camel. Why on a camel? Why did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam not just spend his time in Arafat like everyone else in a tent walking around? Why was he on a camel? Anyone know why? High in Allah, that's one way of looking at it. Ulama, they say, so the entire 140,000, 20,000 people that were there could all, everyone can see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he climbed a little on Jabal Rahma, a little bit. And he was visible to all. Now the Sahaba narrate that we saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam crying and making dua throughout the Arafah, with hands raised until his underarms were visible. He wasn't making dua here. This is where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam generally made dua when he raised his hands. So they say that when a person does dua, it is preferred they raise their hands such that aligned with the chest. There were these key moments in the Prophet's life, for example, at istisqa, when making dua for rain during drought, or in Arafah, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not keep his hands in line with his chest. Rather, what would he do? This, raise his hands above, and it was like an immense intiha tadarru. an intense state of humility. That, Ya Allah, I need it. Ya Allah, I need it. Ya Allah, if I can further, I would reach to your heavens, asking you to not turn me back empty-handed. Praying in front of Allah. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam spoke about what to do in Arafat, he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the best statement said by any prophet before me in Arafat is what? The most, think about this for a moment. Statement I have said, that in itself is just game over. That sentence doesn't need to be further. It's on. The best statement the Prophet ﷺ said in Arafat. That's a game. That's enough. We know Arafat is the best of times in terms of the day, and the Prophet of Allah of creation, and now he is saying the best statements I have said in Arafat. But Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam didn't stop there. He extended it and said, and also when Nabiyuna qabli, and also the prophet before me. What was the best of statements? What did they say? La ilaha illallah, wahdahu, and then la lahu, and then lahul mulk wa lahul hamdu, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. The best made by me or the prophets before me is. Now you stop for a moment and you think to yourself, when you reflect on the meaning of this, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah. Wahdahu, He is alone. Lahul mulku, for Him is dominion. Lahul hamdu, and to Him belongs all praise. Wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, and He is capable of all. There's no dua here. What does dua mean? Dua is an invocation. It is an ask. These are statements. Ya Allah, you are one. Ya Allah, you are alone. Ya Allah, dominion and praise belongs to you. Right? So why? So the ulama, they say, they actually connect this to some ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sometimes what happens is that a person makes such a dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in return of their dhikr, because it is so sincere, so pure, so true, that in return of that dhikr, Allah gives them better than what people are granted that are actually making dua to Allah. You guys understand this? That in return gives them, we find this regarding in one hadith Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that when a person reads Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them what people dua are asking for, and not only that, better than what He gave them. Such is the virtue of Quran. Because in what you're doing, dhikr of Allah, is you're remembering Allah. And if you remember Allah, Allah remembers you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about you, so everything you need without being granted to you. It's an easy win. Right? You can advocate on your behalf, or you test your love for your beloved, and your beloved will take care of it. You can either tell your mom you're hungry, or just go and hug her and kiss her and massage her feet, and then she will say to you, come on, take care of that for you. If you were to say that you were hungry, she'd maybe give you a roti or bread or something small. But what she chooses to give you out of her, she's gonna go the whole 9 yards. She's gonna get it. There's going to be a lassi involved, there'll be a hot part to it, a cold part to it, a fruit involved, a this involved, a that involved, everything. The famous incident of Iyaz, the khadim of Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi. The one time Iyaz, I've shared his story with you guys many times in the previous halaqat. Iyaz was a servant of Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi. Ghaznavi had a famous court, and all the top advisors that sat around him were all very educated people from loft grounds who had a history in life and politics. Among all of the people that advised the Sultan, there was one farmer whose name was Iyas. He was a farmer. He had nothing to do with politics. Sultan was passing by one day, said, "This guy is a special guy." He called him. He kept him next to him for the rest of his life. So people around Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi, they would say that this is unnecessary. Why do you have this rando next to you? We're all these intelligent people. Who is this guy? So one day Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi, in order his intelligence, Iyaz is his intelligence, he gathered all of his advisors in his treasure room, and he said to them that you guys are loyal to me over the years. So I give you 1 minute, walk around and take whatever you want. From my treasure room, it's yours. So people got up, and one person's grabbing that. While everyone's walking around grabbing things, Iyaz sat there quietly without a single movement. People are thinking, look at this dummy. Everyone's going grabbing things in this Pendu, he's in there without any value for this opportunity. When everyone got their possessions and they sat back down in their seats, maybe 5 seconds left, the Sultan asked Iyaz, do you not want anything? He said, yes. He said, why didn't you take it? He said, I'll take it now. He stood up and put his hand on the Sultan's head. He took his hand on the Sultan. That if I have the Sultan, I don't need a part of his treasure, all belong to me. And find perspective. That if a person remembers Allah and praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of all of their needs. Right? Therefore, from the of making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you sit down for your dua, when you're doing istighfar and tawbah, is to start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not just any praise. We praise Allah in a manner that's real to you, that reflects you. And that reflects what you're seeing at that point in your life. You know, you find the Sahaba, some of them would praise Allah while reflecting over his blood camel. Fascinating. They would praise Allah while reflecting on his blessings in the river valleys, in the horses, in the birds, because that's what they saw. So they reflected on that. That you're able to say, Ya Allah, I see your blessings, and I praise you for your greatness. Ya Allah, all praise belongs to you, for you are the one that gave intellect, reason. You are the one that gives life and death. You are the one that gives safety. In the moment, as you're saying these things, you're applying them to yourself. You're applying them to your family. Similarly, when you sit down to make dua, the second is to send salawat upon the Prophet ﷺ. Don't go into your dua until you do these two things first. Whenever you sit to make dua, the first thing, what is it? Hamd. What's the first thing, guys? And the second thing is salat ala nabi. In our language, Durood Sharif. Salawat upon alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, after that's done, when it's time to make dua, before you ask for anything, before you for your inner to be filled with the bounties and blessings of Allah, you should clean that. And that's why the ulama, they say after hamd salawat, the next thing should be istighfar. That you ask Allah for forgiveness. Ask Allah, Ya Allah, forgive me. Ya Allah, forgive me. Ya Allah, forgive me. When it comes to the Haji that's standing in Arafat, the Prophet ﷺ said that Shaitan has lost hope on the Hajj. He cannot do anything. He sees the Haji leave Arafat, he throws dirt on his head. That this one slipped away from my hands. These have all been people that are forgiven by Allah. The honor of the Haji is such that the Prophet ﷺ said, and this is one of my favorite ahadith. I love this narration so much. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, يُغْفَرُ لِلْحَاجِّ وَلِمَنِ اسْتَغْفَرَهُ الْحَاجِّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يُغْفَرُ لِلْحَاجِّ. Forgives the one that performs the Hajj. وَلِمَنِ اسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُ الْحَاجِّ. And Allah also forgives the one whose name is by the Hajj. If you know someone in Hajj, dua. Message them, call them, Habibi, mention my name. Ask Allah to invite me. Pray that Allah gives me a. When I would go for Hajj, people would send messages, dua lists. You guys send those out? You guys have them? No? Keep a dua list. Not one or two of them, Chicago people especially. Lengthy, long dua list. Send them. Allah is my witness. I would make dua for everyone's people. Everyone. When I would go to the haram, sometimes I would go a little earlier and have their names on my phone with their dua, go through all of their duas one by one, just saying Ameen. And it was inspiring. Because when you're making dua for other people and see what they desire, it gives you a chance to say Ameen for yourself. Right? So it's a win-win that you get a chance to make dua for someone else. And when you make someone else behind their back, then say Ameen for you. So it's a win for them, and it's also a win for yourself. The blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يُغْفَرُ لِلْحَاجِّ وَلِمَنِ اسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُ الْحَاجِّ. And the same hadith, Nabi alayhi wa sallam said in the form of dua, اللَّهُمَّ اغْفِرْ لِلْحَاجِّ وَلِمَنِ اسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُ الْحَاجِّ. That meaning is the same, but instead of a statement, a khabar, it's insha. that, oh Allah, forgive the Haji and the one that he makes dua on behalf of. Today is a day of dua. And I want us to maybe 2 more minutes and then we'll get busy with that, inshallah. Today is a day of dhikr. Today is a day of tilawah. And if you haven't had the chance to push yourself so much today, so far, it's okay. We can deal with that. We have over an hour now, hour and 15 minutes. It's an opportunity for you to just sit down. I highly encourage you to, if here, great. If not here, masjid close to your home. I know tomorrow's Eid. Or go home, whatever the case is, block off the rest of today until Maghrib, and just bury yourself in dua. I know we have kids. I have kids as well, and so I can see some of the parents here with their children. Teach them to. That my son, today is a day of Qur'an. Today is a special day. We want to do dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remember, ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you ask from Allah, ask from a place of certainty. Don't let shaitan rob you of your reward because of doubt. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, دعوا الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة. That ask from Allah while you are certain of acceptance. Learn to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you look at the dua of Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salam in the Quran, you learn everything you need to learn about dua. Look at the dua of Zakaria alayhi salam. You know, إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ نِدَاءً خَفِيًّا. That when Zakaria made dua to Allah, he did it in a very silent manner. Because when a person makes dua quietly, silently, it's a sign of persistent sincerity, that they don't give up. Inni wahana al-'azmu minni. I've become weak. I've become weak. And what does he talk about weakness? It's not just anything. He talks about the bone becoming weak. The bone is the strongest part of the human being. The bone is the strongest part of the human. Says wahana al-'azmu minni. My bones have gone weak. That's where I have reached. And he had a dua that he wanted a child, and he kept making dua to Allah, ya Allah, give him the child. And then he says to Allah, Ya Allah, why do I want this child? So this child can be my inherit. That's why I want the child. When a person makes dua to Allah and says, Ya Allah, give me health, they should follow that up with what they would do with that health. Allah, give me so I can worship you. Ya Allah, wealth so I can give sadaqah. Ya Allah, obedient children so they will be serving. Ya Allah, allow me to be regular in the masjid so I can be your beloved servant. That's so. This is from the du'as of the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. And you continue to call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we'll conclude here. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all the tawfiq to benefit from today, and may He accept for those of us that are fasting, and those of us that are not able to fast, alhamdulillah. We have, and let's bury ourselves in our adha, inshallah. Let's raise our hands and ask from Allah, pull out our tasbih and remember Allah, and pull out our Quran and read the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But let's spend the remainder of this day engaged with Allah azza wa jal, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I know some people had asked me if there's iftar today. We don't have any iftar planned at the masjid. We might have some dates here, so you're more than welcome to have some of those water. But that's for your own personal iftar if you're fasting today. You should arrange that, inshallah, individually. Tomorrow, however, will be Eid, as you know. And we will start our takbirat at 8:30. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us life and grants us permission, we will pray tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp, inshallah. Invite everyone to come, and if those of you join, try to carpool a lot of crowd, and try to come earlier as well, so we can accommodate and facilitate. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No,